Well, it's very good to see all of you here this morning to see how we're continuing to grow into this year's Advent emphasis as we conspire together to redefine the Christmas season. And so in week 1, we conspired to worship fully, and we talked about the fact that most everyone worships something in this time of year. The question is what it is that we do worship and how we express that. We were challenged to spend some time this season thinking about the meaning of Advent, that the promise of Jesus Christ was made real for all of us. Then last week we were challenged to spend less, to examine our Christmas lists and see where our giving and our spending reflected our values, and to see where our giving and our spending reflected just knee-jerk consumerism. And I can appreciate that last week's challenge was a hard one for some people. It can be hard because it feels like we're being asked to give something up. When we step away from the excessive spending, from the materialism and the debt of the season, we also can feel like we're stepping away from something that's been part of Christmas for all of us. And I appreciate your willingness to go along with that. This week, we want to go in another direction. Instead of giving something up, we're going to be challenged to embrace something new and something that's good. This is the week when we hopefully get to add something to our Christmas season, and something that accentuates the fun and the joy of Christmas. And so to start us with that, I want to take you back to August 8th, 1996. This was my 15th birthday. Now, I just got my driver's license. So I asked for a car. Now, I wasn't an idiot. I knew that I wouldn't get a car that year. But I figured if I started asking early on, then my parents would come around to the idea all the sooner. Best to start tilling the soil early is kind of how I figured it. And so, at the party that day, as I opened my presents, you're going to kill me, Kevin, I'm sorry. As I opened my presents, I came to a small box. And it was labeled, "To Josh, love the family, happy birthday." And it was a small box. Small enough to hold keys, possibly. So, I began to unwrap it. I pulled the wrapping paper off. As I was unwrapping it, I thought I heard metal jingling against metal. And so I was sure I had been more successful than I thought I would be. Keys were inside. After the wrapping paper was over, there was a small cardboard box. I shook it, heard the metal again, ripped the box open, and my joy was turned into confusion. And my brother, yes, the one sitting right here today, burst out laughing. "There's your car, Josh," he giggled as I pulled out a little die-cast car, a Hot Wheels car. I'd been made the butt of a joke. And as I placed the toy car on the table, everyone else, uncles, aunts, my parents, my grandparents, they all laughed, and I had to laugh too. You can't look like a poor sport on your birthday. The other gifts, the books, the video games, the laser tag set, they were all little consolation though. My dad leaned in toward me and whispered for me not to get angry at Kevin. Apparently he was reading my mind because I was already thinking of what I would do once the relatives went home. And then he said I'd get my car when the time was right. Christmas rolls around. Little cardboard box, all wrapped up nicely. Open it up. Another die-cast car. Ha 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 ha. So funny. This time it was my parents who did it. Two people who the state apparently deemed fit to raise a child had done this to me. Now, I eventually got that first car. It was on my 16th birthday, which was my target date starting out. But what a tragedy. A tragedy of having a caring family that tries to laugh with you through life's struggles. Let's go ahead and jump in for today. Give more. Like I mentioned last week, it sounds like a contradiction because to spend less and yet give more, that's kind of hard to figure out. So what do we mean by that? Well, let's start by looking at Christmas giving. It's a lot of pressure, isn't it? I mean, it's important how we give at Christmas time. You can't just give anybody anything. You got to put some thought into it. You want to give good gifts to your kids, for example, and yet you don't want to spoil them, and you want them to be happy. You want them to feel that special feeling of Christmas morning that you felt as a child. Now, there's also pressure that comes with giving to friends or relatives who are a little distant, who maybe you don't see every day. After all, you don't want to undergive, and you don't want to overgive. I mean, have you ever been in a situation around the holidays with some relative or some friend, and you exchange gifts, and the person gives you a gift that was way nicer than what you got them? It's awkward. Thanks so much for that wristwatch. It's beautiful. You must have really put some thought into that. Now here's the Snuggie that I bought at Walgreens on the way for $10 on the way here. It's a no-win situation. And that's nothing compared to the pressure of the gift for the significant other. Do you go with the practical gift, or do you go with something shiny or fun? If you're a guy and you're nodding your head right now to the practical idea, let me suggest to you that you have 9 days to rethink that. Lots of pressure around gift giving this time of year. And now the pastor is telling you that you have to give more. Well, if giving is so much pressure, let's go back to the other end of the spectrum. How did this even become a ritual of the Christmas season? I mean, it's activity time for us again. So I want you to this time get into groups of maybe 3 or 4. You're going to have just a little question discussion. You have 2 minutes to discuss this. In groups of 3 or 4, here's your topic discussion for today. Why do we give? How come we give presents at Christmas? So you have a few minutes to discuss that with your little circle. Okay? One more minute. All right, well, let's come back together. And what did y'all come up with? Why do you think we give gifts at Christmas? Did somebody want to raise their hand and say, yeah?
We were given one.
Okay, you learned it growing up, right? You got a gift for Christmas, and so you're going to do it. Okay, that's good. Let's get to a point. We're trying to unlearn a little bit of that this season, but that's exactly right, yeah? What else? Carol? The 3 wise men, right? They messed it up for everybody. Which, by the way, how many wise men were there according to the Bible? 3. Doesn't say. It says 3 gifts. Gold, frankincense, myrrh. Gold we understand. Gold is a valuable metal. Frankincense, that incense that Frank used to make. But that was a terrible joke. You shouldn't put up with that. Frankincense is used in religious ceremonies. It's an incense. Okay? So in that gift we see a gift that reminds us of Jesus' religious mission or spiritual mission. And myrrh. Well, we don't know what myrrh is, except that myrrh is a sap that grew out of the myrrh tree, and people would take it and use it to embalm people after they died. It was part of the preservation process after death. Strange gift for a baby, but that's what we have. In John, when Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus take Jesus' body off of the cross, we read that they embalm him with myrrh. So you see all these gifts, and by the way, the wise men, do they give gifts to? They go up to the manger or to the house where Jesus is, and give gifts to each other in front of him? No, they give gifts to Christ, right? Gifts that have meaning behind them. Any other thoughts? Any last ideas? Yeah. Love. Thank goodness somebody said it, right? Yeah, we give gifts together because we love each other. Those are all good answers, and I'm not sure there's any one origin of the tradition of gift giving at Christmas time, but generally speaking, we as Christians, if we want our gift giving to be at its best, we need to start with the understanding that Advent and Christmas is about giving because God gave a gift to all of us. Now, if that's the case, then our giving, if it's going to be reflective of our faith and how we see the world and how we see reality, our giving will happen within the framework of God's generous gift to us. Our giving will reflect that gift. That's what Advent is about. You know what the word Advent means? It refers to the arrival of something or someone that was long expected. This Friday, I'm expecting the advent of my family for Christmas. I had the advent of some Christmas gifts that I bought through the mail. Advent is the arrival of something or someone long expected. Advent is the arrival of the gift that we've been waiting for all our lives. And God's gift seems totally different than ours. Because God's gift giving starts not with a thing, but with God's presence. First thing we can learn about giving from God is that God's gift was profound. When you hear preachers and churchy people talk about the incarnation, you get a window into the profound nature of God's giving. Incarnation means that God was made flesh. God took on the life of a human being in order to be with us. Incarnation shows us that God's gift is that He comes down to earth to be with us. And apart from incarnation, we would never fully know the depths to which we are loved or the lengths to which God can be trusted. Because God gave the gift of His Son at Christmas, we should give good gifts, and we should also give gifts. We should also give godly gifts, because the gift of Jesus is profound. It's untheological, it's unsophisticated, and undignified. But according to Christianity, that is the way that things are. God came down here to be with us in our humanness, to look down into the mess of our existence. God came to get messy alongside us. We have hope because in the midst of our lives, the Word became flesh. God moved into the neighborhood. You know, there's an old story about a missionary teacher on this small Pacific island. And one morning the teacher came to the mission school, and a boy from his class presented a gift to him, this small, brilliantly colored shell. Now, the teacher had seen these shells before. They were from mollusks that existed on the far side of the island, several miles away. And so he told the kid, you must have gone a really long way to pick this shell up. And the boy replied that the long walk was part of the gift. The central truth of Christianity is that God loved the world enough to make the long walk. That's pretty profound. Second thing we can learn is that God's giving is personal. In Luke 2, we hear about the angels that announced to the shepherds the arrival of Jesus, and here is how it reads. But the angels said to them, "Do not be afraid, for see, I am bringing you good news of great joy for all people. To you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign for you. You will find a child wrapped in bands of cloth, lying in a manger." 4 U's in 2 little verses. Jesus Christ, born to you, the angels say. That's how God's gift is. He gives us at Advent exactly what we need, exactly the right thing, having us in mind. Gift is deeply personal for all of us. We're counted in the U's in God's giving of more. And we also see in that Luke scripture the last mark of God's giving. God's giving is relational. It brings people closer to Him, and it brings people closer to one another. Look at to whom the angels announced the birth of the Messiah. They're shepherds. Now, shepherds are usually a pretty cute addition to a Christmas nativity play. But in those days, they were regarded as outsiders and lowlifes. People didn't trust shepherds. And yet God trusts them. God trusts them with an incredible message and incredible good news. Something very special. And God accepted them as they were. This quote from Tim Keller is spot on. Christmas is the end of thinking that you're better than someone else. Because Christmas is telling you that you could never get to heaven on your own. God has come to you. God shows up. And the first place He looks to give Himself relationally is to a group of scruffy outsiders who have been out with the sheep too long. He doesn't bring them stuff at Christmas. He brings them a relationship. God invites them to come and meet this little life. So if God's giving us profound and personal and relational, well, how can our giving reflect that? I mean, it makes our regular giving habits seem a little simple, doesn't it? All of a sudden, I don't feel that stressed out about going to the mall. But really, we don't have to be too creative to give in the way that God gives. The first thing we can do is find out who the shepherds of our community are, the outcasts and the loners, and give them a good message. Advent is such an important time to be generous towards others. Find a way to give generously to an unfortunate person or group. And also find and examine who the shepherds are in your own personal circle. If there's a shepherd in your life, someone with whom you have grown angry or distrustful, someone whom you have cast out of your life, you can be more generous and give more. If you've held a grudge against someone, if you're angry in your heart with a person, even if that anger is legitimate, giving more may mean finding a way to forgive that person. The shepherds of our world aren't just outcasts from society. Very often they're the people we shut out of our lives. Giving more can mean giving generously of our time and presence in the lives of our family and loved ones. You know what the nice thing is about spending less? If we're spending less time in the malls this season, then we have more time to spend with the people that we would have otherwise been shopping for. Find some time to make homemade ornaments with your grandkids or your kids, or to make Christmas cookies together. Read together the stories of Christmas that we find in the Bible. When we give more of our time, we share something that lasts longer than a toy or a video game. We get to share a part of ourselves with our loved ones. You know what's so special about Jesus' coming? He joins us and then He rubs off on us. His grace changes us. His presence changes us. And your presence can change others too. God's presence is with us. That's the whole point of Advent. And what a gift that is. And if I could change the subject, because I was going to close the sermon today in such a nice way. I was going to tell you the end of the horrible Hot Wheels story, where I got my car and everything worked out great, but it just didn't feel right for this week. So if I could just change the subject for a moment. I don't know why some things happen as awful as the school shooting on Friday. I don't understand. I don't really want to understand what happens in a person's mind that makes something like that seem like a good idea. I can't wrap my mind around such evil carried out against children. But thank God for Advent, which reminds us that Jesus Christ is with us in the midst of such brokenness. He made the long walk to be with us in these moments. It's worth remembering that when Jesus was born, a person who was just as crazy and who happened to be the king of Judea, when he heard the good news of the birth of the Messiah, he carried out a slaughter against children. Jesus' mother and father, Mary and Joseph, had to flee from their homes. They knew the fear that these parents in Connecticut feel. And God knows it too, because God came down and lived it. Advent shows us that God isn't content to watch such things and shake His head from afar. He's right here in the midst of our brokenness. And that's a very good gift. One that can sustain us and help us to know that evil people will not prevail. God have mercy on us all. God has mercy on us all. This season, take a moment and feel the reassurance of that mercy. And pass that gift along to show others how good that mercy can be. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.